I love it.
Christmas is the worst part of winter. But anyway.
What? Don't let anything I told you I was going to.
Why?
Sorry, what?
Don't you mean the best part of it?
What?
All right, today we've got Paige, Kinsey, you're up today?
Nice.
Okay.
What is it?
Does anybody want to do anything tomorrow?
The research thing?
I don't. Oh, wait.
What's up? Okay. Okay. No. Are you gonna show it?
That became a good one. So like I did the paper, it's pretty easy. The paper makes sense, and like I just
Okay, so,
but you know, the paper,
yes.
didn't have all the actual.
Okay, so how
Are we
many?
submitting the favorites?
I could
Were
technically.
you part of the thing with everything? Fake.
Fake.
I don't know you wanna do it.
Yeah.
Who's my project? But like,
Can we get it
I just
all?
put it down. I mean, I have it.
Okay, but I'd like to see it.
Right.
Right, exactly.
So there's no way that you can hear it, show it.
I mean, I can sit up here and like, just like, there's a all the way on, and it should ride, right?
So you should get married, right? Fake.
I've already done all my projects. Oh, Theo. I can just walk there and just stand there.
Well, you can still get married, but anyways.
All right, so yesterday my husband ran 2.5 miles outside and hit 26.
Why?
He flies to Florida and then does another 2.5 to see how the temp swing was. 88 degrees.
Oh, that's 100-degree swing.
Well, he was hoping for 100, but it wasn't that hot when he was there. By the time he got there at night, it was in the 60s.
Oh. So like.
That's better than making a plane.
Well, he was hoping for 100 swing.
Oh, okay.
All right, someone want to grab the doors for us?
I said I don't.
Wait, what?
And I'm gonna like, hey, are these tomorrow? So you can see like, I got three of like, the green ones, one, and then one of a different.
All right, let's pray. We'll get started. Which one was that in?
Going to the right.
Was it that one? All right, dearest Heavenly Father, we pray that you be with us this day. We pray that you continue to work in our lives, that you grow us into the people you want us to be, and may we love and honor you in the things that we do this day in Jesus' name. All right, so we're talking about work still. And we're just kind of in the summary stages here. So we were talking about how there can be a lot of arguments and disagreements that come up in this particular area, and how you need to work out solutions to it. And you have to continually reevaluate where you are at and how everybody's handling the balance. It might be okay for you, but it might not be okay for the spouse or the kids. So you have to ask people, how are you taking, how are we maintaining our balance with the work and the chores that we have to do? All right, another thing to consider is that household duties There's bigger fish to fry in life than to fight over little nitpicky things around the house. About organizing that dishwasher perfectly. You know, there's just some things you can let slide, and it'll be okay. All right, so focus on the things that are really important. We were talking about how we're looking at the rise of feminism in the 1960s and how there was this kind of thought that women want more power, want more things. But instead of thinking about it from a power perspective, we need to think about it through the Christian lens of being servants, and being oriented towards caring for the other person instead of looking just toward the needs of ourselves. All right, Christian marriages acknowledge that God is the one that has the power. So it's not me, it's not you, spouse to each spouse, saying who's got the most power, who's, in charge, who's got it all right. It's God that has the power. So if both people acknowledge that He's the one that has the power and authority over the relationship, then you're going to start being more at peace and more content with trying to strive for it. All right, so you're supposed to seek to build each other up. So to look for ways to be positive towards one another, say those things that help people grow, value, respect each other. You should seek what's called equity instead of equality. So this is a really interesting concept. So we're not looking towards things just being totally equal, where it's 50-50, or males are fully equal to females. But equity concerns itself with justice. All right, so the concept of justice. So what's fair and what's good. All right, so equal power may not be equitable. All right, it might not be fair or good. God did not create men and women exactly the same. We talked about some of those differences. And some are very obvious, and others aren't. Only the wife can get pregnant, give birth, and nurse a baby. And if she chooses to stay home to care for the baby, she gives up her ability to add income to the family. She might not be viewed as an equal to her husband as this decision relates to income. And yet this arrangement may be considered very equitable, that it is fair and good, because it affirms who she is in the way God created her. So it's an equitable thing because of that. So she should not feel as though she has less power because she doesn't have to earn income. But she's living to her fullest extent, and it's equitable. All right, because she has to work all day for less or no pay. No, stay-at-home moms don't really get paid to do anything unless there's something outside of that. All right, so in work, we're thinking about work and the balance. Remember the whole concept from Ephesians 5 about submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ. So out of love for your family, you choose to not make it into a power struggle. All right, you seek to help the other person live the best that they can. All right, that's that. The next topic we're going to go into is time, energy, and money. So these are some more areas where there's a lot of struggle. All right, so the first one, time. So time is a social construct. So time has different meanings in different contexts. So if you go to certain cultures, they might view time in a different way. All right, so in the United States, when we say class starts at 1 o'clock, it starts at 1 o'clock. Now, we know in some other cultures, if they say, you're having a church service and it starts at 10 o'clock, they might just say, oh, it's going to start in the morning, and then maybe everybody would gather and get there when they felt like it and get around to it. All right, so time might be something that is held to very tightly or very loosely. So when you find somebody that you want to marry, you're very likely to have different views towards time. All right, so there's different ways that this comes out. So there's the early birds and the night owls are the big thing. So there are the people who like mornings and the people who don't like mornings. And this might seem pretty trivial before you're married. After you're married, it can be a huge issue if you're both completely on the opposite spectrum in this area. All right, so it's something to keep track of. Are you an early bird? So how do you need to treat somebody that wakes up early? And then, I'm a cheerful person in the morning, so I want everybody to wake up and be happy and get going. So I should be sensitive to maybe not everybody wants to be that way, but I actually am not that sensitive about it, I guess. But if a night owl was waking me up, forget it. That ain't gonna fly. All right, so there's those concerns. And it's also about spending time together, all right, and about your energy. So if you have a lot of energy in the morning, that's usually the time when maybe your thoughts are flowing the best too. So it might be a good time for you to talk through certain issues that you might be having in your relationship. But for the other person, their mind could be like mud in the morning. So like trying to find that balance of having, a time when you have truly clear thoughts and you're both on the same energy sort of page can be difficult. All right, then there's the fashionably late thing versus somebody that's on time. Who likes to be on time? A lot of you are on time people. Wow, we're all uptight. All right, and then there's the fashionably late. I remember when I was in high school, my track coach used to operate us on what he called Lombardi time, which I guess was a football coach. So if he said you were leaving for something at 9 o'clock in the morning, it actually meant that we had to leave, that we would be gone at 8:45 and you would have to be there at 8:30 is what it meant. So it was always like an extreme pull. And I remember my grandmother, whenever she would bring me anywhere, she'd say we'd be leaving at 9. Half hour before, she'd be like honking like a mad woman in the front of the house. So, I don't know. So if you're somebody that likes to be prompt, it's stressful if you have somebody that's just, dragging along. So this time concern is an issue within relationships. All right, then family time. So what constitutes family time? Individuals might see it differently. So in our house, we would probably say that family time is also time where we're just spent in the same room together. All right? So we spend a lot of time in the same room together, not necessarily talking to each other. All right? Other people may say that family time is something where you're actively doing something, that only counts. Or if you're doing some sort of going out on an activity together. All right, then the concept of time spent at work. Certain people feel that certain levels are more appropriate than others. And then leisure, how much is needed. So friction in marriages and families occur over how to do this. So it varies for individuals. And I feel like this is something that really gets worked out the most probably in that first year of marriage. So you might have not paid attention to a lot of the time issues before or when you're dating or engaged, but when you're in the first year of marriage, you start to really see it. Oh, we see this way differently. And it can really bother one or the other people. All right, time in the family unit. So the concept of family time often leaves many families disillusioned. So if they have some sort of view that family time looks like X, Y, and Z, and if they don't meet that, they feel a sense of disillusionment over it and feel guilty about it. All right, so it's not often clearly measurable, and it's put into a compartmentalized box. So saying that, oh, after this certain amount of time or this certain activity, then we've met this one, met this concept of family time. All right, so American families operate on highly structured schedules, so it brings a lot of pressure to the family, and then it kind of creates this thought of a necessity to have family time. So, in your ideal family, what are some family-focused activities that you perceive yourself as wanting to do together to be connected? Like, what do you think of as family time? All right, what do you think?
Having like game nights or board game nights.
Okay, a game night, board game night. How many people would say that that's a thing that you like? All right, I wish my family was this way, but they're not. My oldest son will play games. Well, my daughter will, but Theo and Aiden and my husband, forget it. Nothing. Unless I get into some online game with Theo. That would be hilarious. Yeah.
Get it, Theo.
All right, so game night a lot of people think of. What else? Yeah.
My family goes disc golfing together.
Disc golfing. That's a great sport. What do you think, Dylan?
My family, we do similar to game night. We do like a movie night, or like we'll watch a show with
Okay.
like dinner. So we'll sit down, have a meal, and like watch something, and that's always been really fun.
All right, movie night. Yeah.
Fight night.
Fight night.
Yes, you always need
That's
to.
crazy.
What do you mean? You fight each other?
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe not like with the intent of harming each other, but like wrestle around and throw each other around.
Oh, so it's a true wrestling match.
Yeah.
Not like a true
Oh, I would
wrestling
love
match,
that.
but yeah, exactly. It would be great.
I've actually can attest to that. One time I came back home and like all of my cousins came out to me.
Yeah.
Whoa. We don't do this right now. I don't know, maybe because people didn't like what happened, but in our house we used to have this fantasy football league called Play Together, Stay Together. We played it for years and then, I don't know, then my oldest son decided that maybe some of us weren't as good as others. And I am no longer playing with them. I play in the Trinity League instead. Yeah, so we're not staying together anymore. But like I said, in my house, it's a lot of just time spent together in the same room. All right, so people talk when they feel like talking, and then just being connected physically like that makes a huge difference than being isolated away in your room. All right, that's something that we don't do in our home, is we try to keep people out in the open so that, you know, creates that feeling of, you know, we're together. We can talk to each other, we're available. All right, what are some other things? Ideal family, family-focused things that you want to do with your future family.
Travel.
Traveling stuff. So maybe traditions too, right? So family traditions. In my house, it's the camping trip. All right, every summer I have to go camping to be happy, and I am literally, it's less than 5 months. The countdown is already going. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I like literally think about it every day. Like, that's how much I love it.
That's your Roman Empire.
That is my thing. It's like when the day comes, it's like the best day of the whole year.
Oh, my mom always like was really big on having like birthday parties,
Birthday parties.
celebrating. So
Mhm.
I would like to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a nice quinceañera?
Huh?
Do you have a nice quinceañera?
I don't even know what that is.
Okay.
It's a Mexican birthday party.
Yeah.
What is it?
When you're Hispanic, you have a quinceañera, which is a 15th birthday party. It's just tradition.
Okay, because that's the biggest
It's,
birthday.
yeah, it's girls only. You do not have a.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's very big in my family.
Okay.
Get it because it's Tuesday.
I never heard of that.
They get it?
Traditional.
Yeah.
Can I have one of those?
Yeah, that's like one of their biggest moments in their life.
Quinceañero. Quinceañera.
Okay, so like a Jewish bar mitzvah, although that's spiritual. I don't know.
I mean, it's like marketing.
We used to do Sweet 16s were huge in New York City when I was growing up.
Yes.
It was massive. Like I had a major party,
High school music.
and they would do what are the cotillions too?
Oh,
Serious party. All right, let's have one of our presentations. Which one of you wants to go for it?
I'll go first.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so I did a presentation on a TikTok. So I couldn't actually get it to my computer because Trinity blocked my access from TikTok. So I have it on my phone.
valid.
And basically, so my presentation is on strict parenting. And the TikTok basically says that strict parents raise sneaky children. And well, let's talk about it. And if I cough during this presentation, just go with it.
Okay.
I want to preference this by saying that I've been very open about how my family is a very open family. This meant that I could talk to my parents or siblings about anything and everything at any time. However, when I was younger, my parents were semi-strict parents. Although to my 12, 13, and 14-year-old brain, I thought I had the strictest parents in the world, and I really hated it. This being said, I was not a problem child at all. What I would do was so stupid, like the stuff that I did do were like little things like downloading Snapchat when I was 12. Like that was like the extent of my troubled era, I guess. Now as a 19-year-old, I 100% deserved the punishments that I got, and they were not strict at all. So let's dive into actual strict parenting. The definition of strict parenting consists of high expectations or rigid rules, a strong emphasis on discipline and obedience. Now for me, growing up in a law enforcement house meant that the likelihood of me getting strict parents was extremely high. And compared to some, they were, and compared to others, they weren't at all. For me, being from like the ages of 12 to 14, here are some of the rules that I had to follow. I had to stay above a 4.0 GPA at all times during school.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah.
So a literal GPA requirement?
Yeah,
Wow.
So like A+ and like extra credit.
and higher, yeah.
That's crazy.
These were only allowed for a week if they fluctuated, and I had to get it above that. I obviously couldn't use foul language. I had to charge my phone in my mom and my dad's bathroom at night. That being said, I only got a phone as young as I did because I played sports and traveled far away. And the age that I did get a phone, I was in 5th grade, and it was a flip phone. I could only dial 911 and my parents. As for my phone, my mom also had to know all of my passwords. She could go through it nightly, and I had to ask for certain apps such as like Snapchat, Instagram, and social media. I could have sleepovers, but I could never actually sleep over at other people's houses unless their parents were also fellow law enforcement, or if my mom knew the parents personally. This being said, I couldn't hang out at other people's houses unless it was the same requirement, and if they weren't, they had to come to my house or we had to hang out in a public area. Now for some of you, this doesn't sound bad at all, and for others, this might be
Who's
traumatizing.
say bad? Who said this is extreme?
What was GPA?
The GPA was
The
not.
GPA is the only thing that was like,
That was like
oh,
my only rule was
So
growing
to
up. I
my
had to keep
12 to
4.0.
14-year-old brain, it was insane.
Couldn't do that.
But once I got older, these rules eased up a lot, and looking back at it now, these are pretty reasonable expectations.
yeah.
Now I want to talk about a saying that I deem sort of true. Strict parents create sneaky children, which I 97% agree with. As someone who had strict parents growing up, there are definitely sneaky habits that I picked up that I used to use daily. This was mainly because I developed a constant fear and anxiety of getting in trouble. And if you know anything about my family communicates as like yelling at each other and like almost like not talking to you but talking at you. So that kind of like, I don't like getting yelled at realistically because of that. And I wasn't always in constant fear of being in trouble because I was doing something bad 100% of the time. I just didn't like getting in trouble. So if you spent any time around me, I could probably tell who you are by the way that you walk, by the way you make the floors creak, or even how you open and close the door. This was caused by having to listen to my parents coming all the way down the hall, who opened the door downstairs, or how they walked up the stairs to come to my room. Ask my roommates, Hannah and Amani. I can tell which one of them that is by just about when they're about to open the door or how they jingle their keys. The next one is honestly pretty common. I can lie at the drop of a hat and make it seem very believable. Not saying that I do this in my now life, but I used to a lot. I would lie about like the dumbest things possible, like grades, what boy I liked at school, or even if a teacher yelled at me. And having a brother that also went to the exact same small school as me, because I went to a K through 12 school, I kind of felt like I couldn't be myself, or I couldn't say certain things without my brother immediately reporting it back to my parents. So it kind of like created like kind of like a divide between me and my brother. So I just felt like I was being babysat all the time. Some other things, if I can say them without judgment. If you guys are going to judge me, I really don't care. Because I used to do these things and I don't do them now. But I know how to like fake sleep, which I'm pretty sure everybody knows how to. It's really not that hard. Cooling my phone, which just means deleting everything within a matter of like 5 seconds. Remembering the exact position of objects, hiding things fast anywhere, and faking innocence, and etc. Basically a lot of lying and sneakiness. So in a nutshell, I would say, now that we've gone through like the tally marks of authoritarian households, I would say that I caused my parents to be authoritarian, and then when I got older and started maturing and actually started telling the truth, I made them go back to being authoritarian with me.
Meaning authoritative? Like, what do you mean by? Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. As we know, children who grow up in an authoritarian house are more likely to have anxiety, which again, if you know anything about me, is not a surprise at all. So, and that's also why I think I was so scared of getting in trouble all the time, because I had like that constant anxiety in the back of my mind, like I was going to be doing something wrong. Anyway, now that I have come about this topic from my personal experiences, I kind of want to come at it from a Christian perspective. Now, don't get me wrong. Do I know exactly how I'm going to parent my future children? Not at all. But I do know some things that I want. Obedience, respect, etc. Kind of like the norm. Because we have learned previously, disobedient children are more likely to be disobedient to God, I would rather set my future children up for success, because coming from somebody who was disobedient, I was disobedient to God as well. And it kind of hurt, I think, my relationship at that time with Him. But we don't want that, and we don't want that for our future children. And if we are going to be honest, I kind of have some controversial parenting styles, but we'll talk about that later, I guess. The point is that at the end of the day, we're going to parent on how we deem fit to our specific children, because no child is the same. So, however, I highly advise that you have an authoritative style, and just remember, if you're going to be a super strict parent, don't be mad when your child does stuff behind your back.
No fact.
That's my presentation.
So the big difference would be, is to maintain the relationship as best you can with that child. That's really where the thing is. What do you think about the concept that she said about strict parents produce sneaky children? That whole concept. What do you think of that? Oh, we got opinions. Okay, what do you think?
Well, I had both strict parents, and one was better at like talking to me and having like a relationship.
Okay.
And then one was like really like authoritarian
Less
and
so.
like
Okay.
not as good at mending the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So the parent that like was strict but had a good relationship, I like confessed like my worst stuff.
Oh,
to them,
really?
all the sins.
Okay.
And then the one that I like didn't have as good of a relationship with, I just like wouldn't tell them any of that.
Okay, so that's where the more sneakiness
Yeah,
can come in.
yeah.
Because
So-
there's that open door
Yeah.
shut is not the open.
Yeah.
Huh, interesting, so, okay. All right, Dylan, what do you think?
Yeah, so honestly, basically kind of tailing on what Avalon was just saying. the better the connection that you're gonna have with your parents, the more you're gonna want to, the more willing you are going to be yourself and like be willing to, okay, like, hey, I've made a mistake, but my parents, they're not gonna freak out and go, you know, bat crap crazy when they hear about it, right? Versus if it's just like, you gotta stick to the rules, and if you are being disobedient, right, then we're gonna crack down on you like crazy. Well, then obviously I'm gonna wanna hide it, because I don't wanna get in trouble. I mean,
Yeah.
what kid wants to get in trouble? But if you're the kind of parent that, while still disciplining your kid, not saying you shouldn't discipline, but like, still allowing for them to like, hey, you made a mistake, let me walk with you and help you fix this for next time, I'm gonna be way more willing to be like, okay, hey mom, hey dad, whoever, like I screwed up, can you help me with this, that sort of deal, and just at least giving your kid enough room to be themselves, make those mistakes and learn from those mistakes, but then also walking with them to hopefully help them better to not make those mistakes in the future, I think would honestly be the big difference between sneaky children and the children who are more likely to be open with their parents and stuff like that.
Okay. Paige, if you want to answer this, you can or not. You don't have to. But you said your siblings are they're wide range in age. Did they respond in similar ways to the parents, like to your parents, like as far as being a bit sneaky behind the scenes,
So.
or were they different?
My parents, I would say because I said I have like semi-strict parents.
Right.
And like throughout like the majority of my life, they weren't really strict because I kind of just like confessed, like out outside, I just kind of like confessed all my lies. And just kind of like it mended the relationship from that second on. But because my sister's so much older than me, they were so much stricter on her because it was my mom's first child.
All right.
And my sister is like 50 times worse at all this stuff than I am, just because like my parents were super, super, super strict with her.
Okay.
And like I had actually asked my mom when I was doing this paper how she got less and less and less strict, like as per kid. And she basically said that the stuff that she used to freak out about with my older sister, she realized that when my brother or I did it, it actually wasn't that big of a deal.
Big deal. Okay.
And so, and like obviously like natural consequences, if you touch a hot stove, we're gonna burn yourself, so you're probably not gonna do it again. And if you do, well, there's like
I don't know.
really
Does
no
it pay to be the
stupidity.
youngest born child then?
I guess, but yeah, I also like kind of like talked to like my siblings about this as well because I do have a lot of siblings, and like I have a half brother and a foster brother.
Okay.
But my foster brother, I would say, because he's the same age as my oldest sister, so he kind of got like, he came into our lives kind of a little bit later on, where like my mom had already had me and my brother and stuff like that. So his rules were also quite relaxed. They were kind of like the same for the rest of us. My brother like literally never did anything wrong except for maybe once or twice. So we kind of call him the favorite child because he can get like the slap on the wrist and nothing will happen. But my parents,
Well, parents do parent children that are
Differently.
easy. Yeah.
yeah,
If you have an easier child, sometimes it is.
yeah,
There is less.
like rules and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But I would say like my mom and my dad both said that like my like section of where I was like getting in trouble a lot was on like such a low range of just doing stupid stuff and lying. It was never like
And it was basically junior high time.
pretty much.
When all kids are the craziest during junior high, guys.
yeah.
It's like they are nuts. And then by 9th, 10th grade, what I've noticed just subbing, they start to get more normal. Like literally they get more and more normal as they get older. 7th and 8th grade, forget it.
Oh yeah.
6th too, a little bit. They're so bad. It's my least favorite grades to sub in is junior high, without a doubt. All right, time and couples. All right, so this is interesting. When crunch for time, parents will more often focus on their children over the marriage, right? Now, why? Obviously, kids have needs, right? They have to be taken care of. They scream for help. So it's an obvious reason why. And so people get into the habits of just meeting the kids' needs and then not really focusing on the marriage if there's a lot of time crunch involved. So couples need to keep lines of communication open about their lives and spend times together doing things that they like, all right? So it's a hard thing to do. All right, so what are some ways couples can make time to focus on their relationship? All right, so let's pretend now that you have kids and you are time crunched. What sort of things do you want to do to focus on the marriage relationship now? All right, what do you think?
I've heard of this rule called the 2-2-2 rule.
Okay,
So
what's this? Never heard of it.
So it's like you require it between you and your spouse, and you're like, every 2 weeks we're gonna go on a date. Every 2 months we're gonna go maybe on a bigger date, and then every 2 years we go on a trip, just us.
Okay, so it's date, bigger trip, bigger trip.
I'm trying to do a 1-1-1.
All right, the problem with this concept coming from my poverty mentality is that you don't have a lot of money, so you have to think about how to do these things cheaply. So, but you guys are so creative, I'm sure that you'll figure it out. But a good concept of at least time spent together, being focused, more heavily focused than over time. All right, Trevor, what do you think?
No, it's not always going to be an option. But drop the kids off with the grandparents. Grandparents love grandkids.
This is
right?
true.
And so you drop them off with the grandparents to spend some alone time with your spouse.
This is true. That's a good thing.
Well, what if you don't like your parents though?
Say again?
If you don't like your parents, then no. Then
Well,
you have to
exactly.
find
Like I
friends
said-
that you do
like I
this
said,
with.
Not always an option.
I can
Not always an
relate
option.
to that. I never
Yeah.
wanted to leave my kids. In fact, when my son was young, my dad literally had him in his lap trying to give him beer at 1 year old. Literally. You know how babies reach for things? He's literally like getting ready to pour it into his mouth. And I'm like, really?
It's an acquired body.
Start All right, more thoughts. What to do to focus on the relationship? Yeah.
If you put the kids to bed at the end of the day, don't just immediately get on your phones.
All right.
Have time to decompress and talk to each other.
Talk to each other.
And don't just
Okay.
be like, oh, I'm tired, I'm going to bed. Just don't talk to each other.
Okay.
Actually have time where you just go through
I think talking is actually like the best thing that you can do. Like every day, find a time to connect with each other to talk about stuff. All right, and some days you might have more things than others or whatever, but that would be probably the main thing to keep it a focus. And then doing fun things too would be a secondary thing. In our house, my husband talks the most. He talks a lot, guys. So there's talking, and then probably time spent doing different activities together is what we do. We don't go on many dates, though. He doesn't like to spend money. I don't like to spend money. But we might do the big vacation sort of concept. All right, anything, other ideas? All right, so you have to remember to do this. All right, to keep it a focus. Because we remembered when we were talking about parenting, how you want to have a sort of style that is parent-centered. All right, where you have the foundation of our family is a very strong marital relationship. And it's not a child-centered one where the kid just rules everything, takes all of the energy, and decides everything for what the family's going to do. So you focus on that marriage relationship, make it the foundation, and that will help a lot to keep it more balanced. All right, time and children. So kids are also more stressed out now than even when you guys were little. All right, they're playing less, they have more structured activities. There are kids that even, are at school till late in the day, doing like after school program, which might be structured. Faith, you do an after school program. Is it structured? Or they have free time too?
It's mostly free time.
Okay, mostly free time. In Ellendale, I've done the after school, and it's a combination of free time, crafts, homework, so it does have some structure, more structure than you would have if you were home. All right, so kids are pressed for time, and this increases with age. All right, so it gets worse every year as there's more expectations. School, sports, chores, play, TV, video games, reading, meals, homework, church activities, all those things really add up over time, and they feel the stress of it. All right, so there's less time spent on free play and more in structured activities. And what I would encourage you as parents is to give your kids lots of free time, to be unstructured. All right, this makes kids creative. All right, very important. Another thing would be to instill a love of reading in kids. All right, so this would start literally at birth. All right, kids born, you start reading books to them. And then you bring them to the library. You let them have, board books. And then you instill in them a love of reading from a very young age. And it really is it helps them be smarter. It helps with their creativity, focus, all of those things. All right, children whose mothers work outside the home tend to spend the most time in daycare and school. All right, so they're in more structure and have less free time for play. They also get less sleep. All right, so you see these kids. I feel so bad for these kids when they come to school looking like that. When you're like 8 years old and you're being dragged out of bed way too early. And then lack of sleep, everybody knows you don't behave well. I mean, this works for all of us. All right, we go nuts when we don't sleep well. Kids go nuts too. And it usually a child that is tired generally isn't always act sleepy like we do as adults. They generally respond by being hyperactive. All right, to try to combat it and fight against it.
From me to Robinson.
I don't recall, but
His whole.
He's so tired.
Ellen
At the beginning,
like ruin his life.
Yeah.
Was that he didn't get a lot of sleep.
you get a lot of sleep.
That's like
I like the ending where
All right, were you guys taught to read a lot?
Dr. Reed?
Yeah, read a lot at home.
Oh, even Dr.
No, guys. I'm saying this concept of instilling a love of reading is really, really a good one. Like super valuable. So do that with your kids. Yeah.
I don't know what you think on this topic. There was one of my teachers. He was parents of a few of the kids like in the grades around me, and for every like actual book that they read, he would give them $5.
You would pay them to do it?
Yeah, but then it got to an age where they stopped doing it.
Okay.
And so they kept reading on their own, and both of them got like 35s and 36s on their A's.
Okay.
And they read it.
So paid off.
So I don't know what your thoughts are on that. So
I think that having things that externally motivate can be good, but the goal, I think, as a parent is to create intrinsic motivation in children. All right, but like in cases like when you're potty training a child, I advocate, give them a sticker chart, or we used to reward our kids with, you give them an M&M. I think you can give rewards for skills, and try to instill, but at the same time you have to try to instill an intrinsic desire, and I guess in that case they did learn the intrinsic desire to do it. My kids, I don't know if Theo, would you say you're a lover of reading? I don't want to speak for you. Okay, he says he is. My youngest is probably the biggest of all the bookworms. He generally says he's going to bed at 7 o'clock, which doesn't mean he's going to bed. It means he just reads for hours every single night. Yeah, he just loves
I got
it.
an M&M for going in the potty.
He got M&Ms for one. Did Theo? Probably. Theo was our fastest potty trained kid, so he's a superstar in that area.
He knows what he's doing, he's a
The
master.
reward that was like, for if I successfully like became potty trained all the way, was a Hot Wheels track. A Hot Wheels track.
All right, family work interface. So we basically did a lot of things about work, but here's another page. All right, when children enter the picture, husband and wives get less freedom to do what they want when they want to do it. I mean, this is obvious.
Yeah.
All right, you have to put things on pause that, you know, you couldn't do before. You know, I love to run, and when I had littles, I had to, like, basically, if I was going to run, it had to happen before. My husband used to say that I had to always be there before the kids left the house, before the older two left the house. So I would have to be home from running by 7:45 in the morning. And in the wintertime in North Dakota, because I don't like treadmills, so I had to run in the dark for many years. So very miserable, but to do the things that you want to do, you have to change maybe the way you'd want to do it. Yeah.
My mom would have, she'd ride her bike, but she had a carrier attached to her bike.
Okay, that's a good,
Put the kids in.
yeah, you drag them around. I've done that, done the running stroller thing. Been there, done that, it's a nightmare. The day the wheel fell off that running stroller, I was like, thank God, it's over. It's over. But Chloe brings Alethea with the running stroller, so I'm still running with a stroller. All right. As children get older, there are more activities they're involved in. Parents and children arrive home, work, after school activities, and they rush to eat dinner, and it's a stressful thing to do day after day after day. All right, it's not normal for everybody to be feeling that stress. So whatever you can do as a parent to minimize stress, to reduce the amount of activities, that's going to make everybody a lot happier. Because kids aren't supposed to be like that. They're supposed to be free, enjoy life, not feeling a lot of strain. So if they're feeling that, then that's not right. All right, family energy is closely related to family time. So you guys know when we had this 7-week break, did you feel that energy?
Yeah.
Things were a lot better. Like I know in my house, I was like, I am loving this break. And there's just more, people are less stressed. All right, so when there's not a lot of strain on your schedule, it makes families feel a lot better. All right, so what are some ways we can protect time and avoid being stressed by busy schedules? All right, the one thing I suggested was not having maybe as many activities. What else? Anything else you can think of? Not being stressed by busy schedules. What about simply organization? All right, so maybe planning things better. You know, like if you have a certain structure of you don't want people leaving the house crying in the morning, right? Because it's so stressful to get out the door. So you might choose to get, you know, A, B, C, or D lined up the day before or the night before so that everybody can leave. You don't want your kids to ever leave not feeling peaceful, all right? You want everybody to leave the house being relaxed, realizing that they can take on the day, that it's going to be okay. So you could do more things to organize it to create less stress.
A pretty simple one is just learn how to say no.
Learn how to say no, yeah. How many people are good at no? I am too.
I
It
can't.
depends.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm usually in the minority, but I'm a good no. Most people tend to fall into the category of people pleasing. It's generally more common. But if you are a people pleaser, learn to say no. And those of you who say no, learn to say yes at times when it's appropriate. All right, let's have Kinsey. Kinsey, what's your topic?
My topic is It's artistic projects on like dysfunctional families. So the silhouette represents what the family may perceive on the outside and around people, and the shadows perceive what is hidden at home and that what most people won't see.
Nice.
So I drew this to show an example of how bad habits or generational issues and different things can like be passed down or can affect the rest of the family. Some of the stuff I had on there was to represent different aspects that can be issues. I didn't incorporate all of them just because some of them were pretty hard topics, and other ones I just didn't have other family members, like did a basic kind of family, like a boy, girl, 2 parents, so yeah. So in here I have, for example, the boy is vaping, following what the father's doing, who's smoking, and his face is also kind of like the boy's face is an optical illusion, so it can look like he's looking at his father and the smoking, but he's also looking away, to represent like maybe following his father what he's doing, but at the same time not wanting to be acknowledged with his family. Along with that, I have scissors, which can represent like self-harm or cutting ties with people, like being emotionally unavailable. I also have, the father's holding alcohol and a cigarette. He's also looking at his phone, so he's not paying attention to his family, and the phone is also in front of his wife's face, so he's looking at the phone rather than his wife.
Oh boy.
So, to show that he's distracted and not paying attention. The wife is holding a lamp to represent gaslighting, and flowers behind her back to represent...
There's a lot in this. You packed a lot in there.
Yeah, the flowers are to represent like infidelity, like cheating.
Oh, wow.
And she's looking ahead at other things that she's focused on rather than her own family. And for example, like the daughter is reaching out to her parents, but they're not paying attention to her because she's wanting help, but they're not paying attention. And the teddy bear is attached to a rope to show suicidality. Now, some of these do not, you wouldn't suspect it to be like gender norms or age norms, but I used it for those certain things to show that it is possible to happen with those categories. For example, young kids can also be found having suicidal thoughts if it's sometimes brought up in the family or if the parents are talking about stuff or there's a lot of like topics of death coming up. And another one is like sometimes people will see, like a lot of times I think like the guy is the one being lustful, but the wife can also do it too. And young kids can also do self-harm and be involved in like drugs and vaping and stuff. So that was to bring up those different topics just for awareness. Other ones that I like didn't incorporate were stuff like, remember one was, pornography, teen pregnancy, and violence, and other things like that. I didn't incorporate those ones just because, like for one, I don't have a teenager in here, and other ones could be a bit inappropriate or like too disturbing to put in, so. But yeah, also why I have the family looking more perfect there is to show pressure that they're putting on the children or the partner, to show that, to not let anybody else see what's going on inside and to think that everything's perfect. What inspired me to do this was because I grew up in a dysfunctional family. for example, like my dad, I didn't notice that he had a lot of gaslighting traits and stuff. Mother Gothel from Tangled, she's actually based off of narcissistic traits. And my dad's a narcissist, so I didn't see anything wrong with what she did. Like murder, kidnapping, I thought that was horrible. But stuff that she would say or do, I'm like, why is that wrong? People are like, oh, she's such a horrible villain. And I'm like, is she? She seems like a normal parent to me. But later on, I started finding out more and more about different things. And so I have this to show that it can be good to reflect on things in your past or bad habits that you have to understand how that can affect the people around you and your loved ones, and not pass that down to your children. Of course, there can be mental health issues, which is good to be aware of, like if it's genetic, because that can be something that causes it to be passed down and repetitive. So, something else I would like to add is it's good to like get counseling for those things, and especially if you've had past trauma, and know that nobody's perfect. We all have sinned, but thankfully Jesus can forgive us of our sins, and God is so much more powerful than anything we could ever do.
Yeah.
So it's good to trust in the Lord, and that He will make things right in your family and in what you do. And trust in Him, and work on focusing on the Lord, putting Him first in your family, and putting your family members for other things. So making sure that you're paying attention to what may be going on, or what things might not be quite right that you're doing. Even if it may not seem right, it's good to look out for stuff like that.
That was great. A lot of, so many elements, that's what was so neat about it. All right, so more in work here in conflict. So family boundaries can be more flexible than work ones. So it's easier to make your family adjust to the certain demands than it is to have your job. I mean, obviously you're gonna end up fired if you don't meet certain requirements. So the family is often the first thing that suffers when you have a family work balance problem. There's a work-family connection for couples. So when couples are positive in their marital satisfaction, they tend to show a higher level of job satisfaction. All right, so when the marriage is going well, they tend to see things in a more positive light on the work side. When the marriage is going poorly, they might see their job poorly on the same way. All right, social support and families' coping resources can result in either ease or strain on the family. So how families act, what jobs are like how the job supports or doesn't support a family, affects how the family can respond to it too. So what are some ways you've seen work bringing conflict into a family? What would you do differently? How has work brought conflict in the family?
Both my parents are pastors, and so Sundays after church are sometimes hard as a family.
Okay.
Because that Sunday drama is like, it's
Processing everything that happened?
It's hard to separate because there's no time for them to talk with each other on Sundays, and so it does end up getting brought home.
Right,
So it ends up,
yeah.
all that frustration gets taken out at home, because on Sunday, as a pastor, both of them being pastors, you just have to be on the entire time.
Yeah, that is a tough thing. When you have two people in on the same job too, or even, all ministry is gonna be like this, even if they're not both pastors, just having both people in on something like that and then needing to process it together at home is a hard thing. And then to keep your kids from not, thinking that the whole place is toxic. That's another thing. So the biggest ways that I think work brings conflict into family is just the stress of it. And if you bring it home and you're a person that's a verbal processor that likes to talk it through, it can be hard on the rest of the family. You might need to talk about it, but you have to do it in such a way that it doesn't bring strain to the rest of the family in the process. All right, other examples. Work bringing conflict.
So I kind of like how you say how you have to come home and you want to talk about it but you can't.
Right.
And having law enforcement parents, my mom heard some very brutal things.
Right.
At work.
Things that you really are hard to process.
Yeah, like children dying and stuff like that. So their work actually told them that it was they wanted them to go home and talk to their spouses about it. Yeah.
Okay.
And I just remember times where